keep that overarching mentality of what is the song actually trying to show a listener.
And I find the concept of hierarchies super important. Ever since Dylan mentioned in that leveling weekly download, this idea of mix hierarchy. It was probably like a 10-second point in that hour-long video, but I found hierarchies to be such a useful way for explaining these concepts to people. And one thing I find holds true is like if you have a drum hierarchy and if you have a synths hierarchy, and for example, that might look like, you know, my kick and snare and maybe tom fills are like at the absolute forefront of this hierarchy, and then the secondary elements are maybe the hats, and maybe the more like back in the hierarchy would be like the little like percussion hits and textures and blah blah blah. Now if you go to your synths group and you say, okay, lead main layer is number one in the hierarchy, and then chords main layer is number one, and then maybe it's lead layer 2 and 3, and then chords layer 2, and then whatever. Generally, if you can structure your hierarchies well within the groups in the way that you're leveling these sounds, you should be able to bring just the groups in with each other when you're doing your final mix, and there should be minimal tweaking inside of the groups.
Yeah, totally. I love that you mentioned the Skrillex like template, by the way, because that's a perfect example of something that, like, if you know what's going on, you can maximize the result very, very easily. And if you don't, you're just going to make an over limited sausage piece of shit. By the way, if any of you guys are unfamiliar with that template or what we're talking about, we'll throw a link in the show notes to that. And probably the weekly download too, because I'm sure you guys want to know about that. But
shouts to the weekly download. That's been one of the biggest resources in my learning career.
For real. But yeah, like if you like, I've had multiple students who will just take with limited understanding, maybe 6 months in with limited understanding, and try and throw their project in the Skrillex template, and it doesn't always yield better results if you don't understand how the routing is working. I had one student who routed everything to the sends and also to the master. You know, like that's
easy mistake to make, but yeah, man, that'll mess things up.
Yeah, but you got to understand how the thing works, and then you can maximize the result. But that clipping template is fucking amazing for getting loud.
Shout outs GClip, free plugin, super useful. And I love too that it's an all-in-one, and you have the visual of the input, the visual of the output. You can perfectly see like where the average signal volume is, where the extremities are, and just clip those off. It's so good.
Yo, Nicola, when are we going to get the T-clip, dog? I know you're working on that clipper.
Oh, the distortion.
Yeah, I want that T-clip, dog.
It's going to happen soon. I've been caught up with all the other accountability stuff, or not doing the accountability stuff, I suppose. It's been a busy while, but definitely soon, man.
I wanna overuse and abuse a T-clip without understanding how it works on all my projects. And
shouts to Sausage Fattener.
Yeah.
Episode 1 throwback. If you haven't heard that one, go back in the archives, y'all.
Throwback.
Man, that all this kind of is bringing up this concept for me of like having a top-down understanding of why you're making the moves in your song. Like, it's so easy to look at all of the faders and all of the buttons and all of the VSTs and all of the tracks and be like, there is so much going on here. But if you keep that overarching mentality of what is the song actually trying to show a listener? Well, okay, I want them to be able to dance to it. So like you mentioned, that drum group being cohesive and punchy is going to be really important, and having the right amount of dynamics in it so that your kick and your snare are really letting you know where to move your feet, and then your hi-hats are kind of like letting you know how you can play with your hands. And then, okay, this is the actual most important instrument in this section. And my main goal is make that first in the volume, make that first in the sitting on top of the frequency spectrum, and do not let, and mix that first. Priorities here, mix that first, make sure it sounds lit. And then your job is to, as you go down the list of less and less important elements, don't let any of the less important elements step on those earlier, more important elements while you're mixing. That happens so much in, my old mixes all the time, for sure. And so many of my students, it's like, oh yeah, okay, you started with those, and then you just started throwing stuff on. You're like, oh, I can't hear that. Let me turn it up. Now I can't hear this. Let me turn this up. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, but those first 4 things you mixed were way more important. Now the kick, the snare, the sub, and the lead line are buried behind FX risers and shit. Totally. Nobody ever needed to write a song about an FX riser. It's a background element for a reason.
Well, and to me, it sort of signifies like this. I know they're not consciously thinking of it in this way, but to me, it's like, the way I see it is like, you're an audio shaman leading people, grabbing them by the hand and guiding them through this auditory trip, let's call it. And if they hear too many voices, they're going to freak the fuck out. So you need to make sure the message is loud and clear. Now, the thing is, when you're introducing this riser and it's 15 dB louder than it needs to be, that's like somebody enjoying their time and then something just jumps out of the bush and it's like, booga booga, I'm a riser and I'm here and you need to know I'm here. And it's like this very like, it just comes across as if the producer felt like that riser was the absolute most important thing and it needed to steal the spotlight from everything. And a good analogy I like to use with my students is like...
Wait, better than the Ooga Wooga analogy? Are you kidding me?
A close second.
I already want that on a t-shirt.
I am
Ooga Wooga, I'm a riser.
Ready for this shit. Let's hear.
I view the main elements sort of like the main characters in a movie, right? And the arrangement of your structure is the plot line of the story. And now it's like, imagine the movie 300. If all 300 people in that army were a main character, that movie would still be going on to this day. It's way too chaotic. There needs to be 2 main characters and 298 secondary characters, or just totally background characters that appear for like a split second in one scene, one time, to give context to the main characters. Or another analogy you could think of is like those breakdancer groups. There might be like 30 Jabberwockies, but they're all 30 of them aren't trying to steal the spotlight at once. One might come out, or maybe 2 might come out and be in the spotlight, and all the other people in the back are just doing like simplified versions of whatever the people in the front are doing, just to set context to the spotlight.
Yes, and that is the perfect, those two together are really powerful visuals to remind us that the way people actually listen to music is not like we might as the producer paying attention to all 100 sounds in the song. They are listening to one thing at a time, and there's a lot of extras in the background that just make this look like a real place.
Yeah.
There's like, okay, this is actually a thing. There's enough happening. There's ambiance. There's little tiny spicy percussions. But really, I'm listening to that crazy lead bass line. Or really, I'm listening to the rapper or the singer. And then everything else is providing context. Like, what's behind the Mona Lisa? I had to Google it the other day because I was curious. Like, wait, what is behind? Is she indoors?
There's like trees in like a field, right? There's like a field kind of on the right, some trees and some
like mountains and a river, some trees. Yeah, it's a landscape behind her. But I didn't know if she was indoors or outdoors for real. I know her smile.
Do I get a C?
I mean, yeah, you're pretty close, man. Yeah, I'd say that's sea level material. I didn't do that good. I was like, I'm a guess before I click search on Google, and I thought she was indoors. I thought it was going to be a wall with some, medieval whatever on it. But nope, turns out, I guess Renaissance, but hey, Renaissance man, Leonardo, what's up? But
shout out.
It doesn't matter. We were all looking at her smile.
That's true.
She could have been indoors. It would have been just as dope of a painting. He just picked outdoors because that's what he picked. It doesn't matter. We were looking at Mona Lisa. Well, everything behind her made it just not her on a white background being like, why? Wait, why is this girl in like a white void? Like this is some sort of weird commercial.
Yeah.
Stuck in purgatory.
I remember the first time that I realized this concept works when I accidentally made my chords like -30, and then I had like 4 like lead melody type layers playing there. Like I had this big lead melody, and then like in my amateur state I would have been like, yep, the chords need to be just as loud, and I accidentally had the chords at -30, and then all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, why does this sound so good? I can the lead is so clear, and I get the emotion from the chords, but wait, I can barely hear the chords. What? I need to turn those up. And I turned the chords way up, like to -10 or whatever. And I'm like, wait, that actually made it worse. Wait, the chords don't need to be that loud? They can be kind of in the background and it makes it better? Mind blown. Side note, your second analogy was better than the Ooga Wooga, and hats off to you, golf clap.
Also, it had the word Jabberwocky, which is definitely about as cool as Ooga Wooga. You know,
it's up there.
I feel like I still might want Booga Wooga on a t-shirt.
Yeah,
so.
I definitely do.
Another just point I want to add to that is like, if you see a Jabberwocky's routine, it's not just that 1 or 2 of them are the mains throughout the whole thing, right? It's like when you see these breakdancer crews, and you can think of this as like, as they're dancing section to section in the song, think of your main elements in your DAW, right? It's like maybe for the drop or maybe for the hook, these 3 are like the elements, but it's like, well, let's say it's a drop. Well, in the verse, do you need drop basses up in the front competing with the vocals? No. So the same way they
please don't.
Exactly. So in that same way they organize their routine, it's like maybe one person comes up and then he goes back and joins the group, and then 2 people come out and then they do a little thing and then they rejoin the group, right? And then maybe it's like whatever. It's like they do their own little thing for a bit, and then another person or 2 come out to the spotlight. And it's not always fixated on one person, but even as it's changing, there is still very direct focus on the main part of that routine.
Yeah.
You are giving us such a good visual metaphor of what checkerboarding actually is. It's like literally I can't watch what 30 dancers are doing at once. It's impossible. I can watch what 1 dancer is doing for sure. I can watch what 2 dancers are doing if they're doing it together. I'm still going to miss parts. 3 dancers were pushing it. Past that, I am mostly just ignoring the rest of those people all doing the same move in the background.
Yeah. 100%.
And it just looks cooler because they're back there.
Right.
Because when I look through those people, it's not just an empty stage full of nothing.
But if it was your 10th time seeing the routine, and likewise 10th time listening to the song, now you know what the main part is, and now you're sort of digging in the background, and you might pick up on some new stuff.
Yeah.
And Dylan also had a quote that he gave me back in the day when we were working with him one-on-one, where he said, if everything is loud, nothing can be loud. It's the differences in volume that make the loud things seem loud. And I've extended that one step further. And if you replace loud with stereo width or reverb or whatever, you also need to keep in mind there needs to be a stereo width hierarchy. There needs to be a reverb hierarchy. There needs to be order. And some things need to have more of some stuff, and some things need to have less of some stuff. And if you can ensure that, you can make sure that your track is actually evolving and breathing over the course of a section. The same way we start off as children, mature, and then sort of regress in our older age. It's like intro, hook, outro. It needs to be starting off smaller than the most climactic section, and it needs to die off relative to the most climactic section.
Yeah, definitely. I think that a random side note that I was thinking of in regards to your oogity woogity with the risers.
That one really like hit
It really
home, eh?
resonated with me. I love it.
I like gibberish. What can I say?
You also need to EQ your risers. Most people just throw a riser in and assume like that it's doing its job.
That's me.
Like, nah, dog. In the Jabberwockies reference, like that riser who's in the background, he ain't waving his hands all over the place. He's doing very muted movements. EQ out the pain zone out of that distorted riser. So your lead that you think is actually causing a harshness issue, no, it's those 6 risers that you stacked on top of each other and left untamed.
I like it.